Scott is going to be reading George and Martha, the complete stories of two best friends, though today we'll just do a few of their vignettes.
Okay, story number 1, split pea soup. One of my favorites, my favorite. Martha was very fond of making split pea soup. Sometimes she made it all day long. Pots and pots of split pea soup. And there's Martha. If there was one thing that George was not fond of, it was split pea soup. As a matter of fact, George hated split pea soup more than anything else in the world. But it was so hard to tell Martha. Oh dear. Oh dear. One day, after George had eaten 10 bowls of Martha's soup, he said to himself, "I just can't stand another bowl, not even another spoonful." So, while Martha was out in the kitchen, George carefully poured the rest of his soup into his loafers under the table. "Now she will think I have eaten it." But Martha was watching from the kitchen. Do you see him pouring the soup into his loafers? Right there. How do you expect to walk home with your loafers full of split pea soup?" she asked George. "Oh dear," said George, "you saw me. And why didn't you tell me that you hate my split pea soup?" "I didn't want to hurt your feelings," said George. "That's silly," said Martha. "Friends should always tell each other the truth. As a matter of fact, I don't like split pea soup very much myself. I only like to make it. From now on, you'll never have to eat that awful soup again." "What a relief," George sighed. "Would you like some chocolate chip cookies instead?" asked Martha. "Oh, that would be lovely," said George. Then You shall have them, said his friend.
Oops. Oh, man.
Yum, yum.
More story vignettes with George and Martha from the complete stories of Two Best Friends.
And this story is called The Artist. George was painting in oils. That ocean doesn't look right, said Martha. Add some more blue. And that sand looks all wrong. Add a bit more yellow. Please, said George. Artists don't like interference. But Martha just couldn't help herself. Those palm trees look funny, she said. That does it, said George. See if you can do better. And he went off in a huff. My, said Martha. Some artists are so touchy. And she began to make a few little improvements. When George returned, Martha proudly displayed the painting. George was flabbergasted. "You've ruined it," he cried. "I'm sorry you feel that way," said Martha. "I like it." Martha was one of those artists who aren't a bit touchy. Now we come to story number 4, The Attic. One cold and stormy night, George decided to peek into the attic. "Go on up," said Martha. "Oh, no," said George. "There might be a ghost up there. Oh, or maybe even some werewolves." "Oh, goody," said Martha. "Let's investigate." But There wasn't much to see in the attic, only a box of old rubber bands. George was disappointed. "Would you like to hear a story that will give you goosebumps?" asked Martha. "You bet," said George. "When you hear it, your bones will go cold," said Martha. "Oh," said George. "Your blood will curdle," said Martha. "Oh," said George. "And you'll feel mummy fingers up and down your spine," said Martha. "Stop," cried George. "I can't take any more. Tell me some other time." That night, Martha went to bed with the light on. She had a bad case of goosebumps. One late summer morning, George had a wicked idea. "I shouldn't," he said. "I really shouldn't." But he just couldn't help himself. "Here comes the rain," he cried. "Egads!" screamed Martha. Martha was thoroughly drenched and as mad as a wet hen. "That did it," she said. "We are no longer on speaking terms." "I was only horsing around," said George. But Martha was unmoved. The next morning, Martha read a funny story. "I can't wait to tell George," she said. Then she remembered that she and George were no longer on speaking terms. Around noon, Martha heard a joke on the radio. "George will love this one," she said. But she and George were not speaking. In the afternoon, Martha observed the first autumn leaf fall to the ground. "Autumn is George's favorite season," she said. Another leaf came swirling down. "That does it," said Martha. Martha went straight to George's house. "I forgive you," she said. George was delighted to be back on speaking terms. "Good friends just can't stay cross for long," said George. "You can say that again," said Martha. And together they watched the autumn arrive. But when summer rolled around again, Martha was ready and waiting. That, dear friends, is the end of this